I sold a pen of steers a few autumns back. 9 of 'em, I want to say. Might have been 10. $2.30 a pound, live weight, off my own scale. A few weeks later, I'm standing in a store 40 miles from that pasture, and I buy myself a steak. Same kind of beef, maybe off my own place for all I know. $15 a pound, and it was about half an inch thick. I cooked that steak 3 separate ways over the next few years, trying to prove myself wrong about it. Blamed the pan every single time. Well, it wasn't the pan. And today, I'm going to prove that to you. So here's my claim right up front, and I want you to hold me to it. By the time we're done, you'll walk up to a meat case and know, before you touch a single thing in it, which of those steaks can be cooked well and which ones flat can't. And here's the part that'll surprise you. The good one is usually not the expensive one. Nothing to buy to make this work. No gadget, no class, no special store you gotta drive across town for. Cheaper, most days, than what you're buying right now. 15 things I want to hand you today. And if you're one of the regulars, you'll notice I didn't take my usual time getting here. Some of these you'll already know. Most of you will be surprised you don't. Now I'll tell you my whole credential, and it's 1 sentence long. I raise the animal. That's the thing the fellow behind the counter can't say, however good he is at his job. Nothing to buy at the end of this either, same as it wasn't back at the barn. Here's number 1. A steak under an inch thick cannot be cooked well. Not by me, not by a fellow with 40 years in a restaurant kitchen. Nobody. Okay, it ain't opinion, it's just how heat moves through meat. Slow. To get a real brown crust on the outside, you need honest heat, and you need it a while. And on a thin steak, by the time that crust shows up, the heat's already gone clean through to the middle. There's no pink left in there to protect. You've got one temperature, and it's gray. So the rule I go by, 1.25 inches minimum. Thinner than that, and you're not choosing a steak anymore. You're choosing between gray and raw and calling it a decision. I've stood at a meat case with an honest-to-goodness ruler in my hand. Felt foolish doing it the first time. Do it anyway. Second thing, the grade. 3 words you'll see stamped around. Prime, choice, select. And near about nobody standing at that case could tell you what any of them mean. It's marbling mostly. How much fat's worked its way through the muscle, not around it. More marbling, higher grade. And here's the number that surprises people. Something like 2 or 3 steaks out of every 100 you'll ever see are true prime. Most of what's on that shelf, 6, 7 out of 10, is choice. Select trails behind, leaner, and it'll punish you quicker for overcooking it. That grade's federal, and it's earned. It's about the only word on that whole package that actually is. Third, and I want to say this one plain, because it's the one that costs people the most money. Angus is not a grade. It's a breed. All that word's telling you is what color the hide was. Nothing about the grade, nothing about how it was fed, nothing about how thick they'll cut it for you. And here's the part that'll needle you. Most of the cattle in this country carry Angus blood somewhere back in them. So Angus on a package is a little like a sticker that says, has 4 legs. True, don't tell you much. Fourth, people say fat like it's one thing. It ain't. There's 3 kinds, and only one of them you actually want. Marbling, them little white threads running through the meat itself. That's the good one. It melts while it cooks and bastes the meat from the inside. The fat cap, that thick white edge along one side, fine in its place. Trim it or leave a little, your call, but it ain't doing the same job as marbling. And gristle, that's connective tissue, and it does not melt in 6 minutes on a hot pan. That needs hours and low heat, or it needs to not be in your steak to begin with. Fifth, the cuts. And I want to rank them by what they're actually for, not by what they cost. Those two lists don't match near as much as folks think. Ribeyes got the most marbling of the common cuts. Forgiven. Hard to ruin if you're paying any attention at all. Strip steak. Leaner than a ribeye, a firmer bite, and less room for error once it hits real heat. Filet's the tender one, and the honest truth is it's tender because that muscle never once does any work in the animal's life. Tender ain't the same as flavorful. Keep those two straight in your head. Sirloin, flank, skirt, those are working muscles. Less fat, more beef flavor if you ask me, and they'll punish you quick for cooking them wrong. Now here's a listener contract, because this next part's going to sound backwards. Just trust me on it a minute and chew on it before you argue with me. A well-cut flank or skirt steak, marinated a spell, cooked hot and fast and sliced against the grain. That'll beat a badly cut, badly aged, too thin strip that cost you 3 times as much. Against the grain's the whole trick on those two. Cut with the grain and you're chewing rope. Cut across it and you've shortened every fiber for your own teeth. Sixth, this one's for the ones of you who've paid up and still been let down. There's usually one of 3 reasons for it. It was cut thin for the display case, so it looked like more steaks fit in the tray. Rule 1, coming back around already. Or it was wet-aged and nothing else, which is most all beef some. And nobody told you that ain't the same thing as dry-aged, which we'll get to directly. Or the price was carrying the name of the cut and not the grade of the meat. A filet's dear because it's rare on the animal, not because it's prime. Now, grass-fed versus grain-fed. There's people who'll fight to the death over that one. Moral reasons, land reasons, and that's a real conversation, and it deserves better than a drive-by from me. So I'll leave that part of it be. What's actually different on the plate? Grass-fed runs leaner, less marbling, a little more mineral, some say gamey. Grain-fed runs fattier, sweeter, more forgiving on the heat. Neither one's cheating you. They're just different animals eating different meals. 8th thing, dry-aged versus wet-aged. Wet-aged just means it sat sealed in its own juice on the truck. That's most beef most of the time, and there's nothing wrong with it. Dry-aged hangs open in a cold room, weeks at a stretch, loses moisture, loses weight, could give up a quarter of what it started at to evaporation and trim. That's why it costs what it costs. You're paying for what got thrown away. Nuttier, deeper flavor for it. Worth the money on a special night. Not worth it on a Tuesday. And I don't believe anybody who tells you different. 9th, reading the package itself, which most folks have never once been shown how to do. That red liquid pooled in the tray. That ain't blood. Blood's mostly gone at slaughter. That's water and protein the muscle let go of. A little's normal. A lot means it sat too long or it's been frozen and thawed once already. And that bright cherry color everybody hunts for, that's mostly just oxygen hitting the surface. A duller purplish cut sealed up tight can be every bit as good. I'd trust my nose before I'd trust my eyes on that shelf. And I'll say this one plain, 'cause it's the one place I don't want to be cute with you. A sell-by date ain't a spoil date. But if it smells off, or it's gone slick and tacky, don't take the chance to save $2. That's not worth being wrong about. All right, 10th thing, and it might be the single most useful sentence in this whole video. Most folks don't know the man behind that counter will cut you a steak thick as you want it, off the same roast sitting right there in the case. All you've got to do is ask him, "Cut me that 1.5 inches, would you?" Cost you nothing extra most places, and it solves Rule 1 before it ever gets to your kitchen. 11th, frozen ain't the enemy everybody makes it out to be. How it was frozen is. Freeze it slow, at home, and the water inside forms big ice crystals that tear up the cell walls. Thaw it, and all that moisture just runs right out onto your cutting board. A commercial flash freeze does it fast enough the crystals stay small and don't do near the damage. That's a genuinely good steak, and people walk right past it, 'cause the word frozen spooks 'em. Thaw it slow, in the refrigerator, a day ahead, not on the counter, not under hot water. That part actually matters for your health, not just for the texture of your supper. 12th, salt. And here's where I'll admit I did this one backwards for about 20 years. Salt it right before it hits the pan, and there's not enough time for that salt to do anything but sit on top and pull a little moisture up to the surface, which fights you getting any crust at all. Salt it 40 minutes ahead, hour if you've got it, overnight if you're planning that far. The moisture comes up, and then it pulls that salt right back down into the meat with it. Season clean through and drier when it hits the heat. 13th thing, kin to the last one, pat it dry before it ever touches the pan. Paper towel, both sides, don't skip it. Water's got to boil off a surface before that surface can brown. A wet steak just steams itself gray for the first while, and you've burned your best heat making nothing but steam. That's 14 of them. Grades, cuts, fat, the package, the salt, the thickness of it. The 15th one I want to save for the end, 'cause it ain't a tip. It's more of a confession. Let me tell you the rest of that day with the steak, 'cause I left something out of it earlier. I'd sold them steers at the sale barn that same morning, and I knew near to the penny what every one of 'em was worth. Weighed 'em myself. Watched the scale. Wasn't a number on that ticket that could have surprised me. There was an old order buyer down there. Bought cattle for a living, 40-some years. Used to say the scale don't care what you paid for your truck. Fat tells the truth. The sticker just tells a story. And then I drove into town that same afternoon, still smelling a little like the sale barn, and I stood in front of a meat case. And for all I know, I mean that, for all I know, that was my own beef staring back at me. Same country, same breed, same season. I couldn't have told you either way. And I paid full price for it. A man who can weigh a steer to the pound with his eyes shut, standing right there paying whatever the sticker told him to. I've told that one on myself at more than a few supper tables, and it gets a laugh every time. And it ought to. It's a funny thing to be. An expert on one end of the beef business and a fool clean through on the other. And here's the honest why of it. Out at the barn, I know what I'm looking at. In that store, I was looking at a picture. Good lighting, a clean tray, a word or two on a sticker, and I let the picture do my thinking for me. Put me in mind later of something my father's copy of Steinbeck used to needle at. The Grapes of Wrath, wrote sometime in the 30s, I want to say. Might have been closer to 40, I don't hold the date exact anymore. Fellas growing the crop and standing at a counter paying more for it than what they got selling it. Now, I'll argue with that some, and not just agree with it. Those men were furious, and they had a right to be. They were being cheated outright. Nobody's cheating me at that meat counter. That fella's got a lease and a light bill, same as anybody. It ain't a crime story. It's a knowing story. I didn't lose money that day. I lost the one advantage I actually had, and I never even noticed it was gone. I had a Louis L'Amour paperback stuffed in my back pocket that whole afternoon. It is about how little I figured I'd need my head for anything harder than a Western that day. Should have left it home and brought a ruler instead. The fat tells the truth. The sticker just tells a story. I've turned that old buyer's line over more since that day than I ever did while he was saying it to me across a set of scales. Now let me turn that around on you, 'cause I don't believe I'm the only one this happens to. Where else are you letting the picture do your thinking for you? Where's the thing you'd know cold in your own trade, but you go soft and trustin' the second it's dressed up and put behind glass? The mechanic who can't hear a bad bearing under his own hood, but takes the dealership's word on a $5,000 repair. The nurse who can read a chart in her sleep and signs whatever the salesman hands her at the closing table. Now some of you are sitting there thinking, Hank, that ain't the same thing. That's a whole different kind of trusting. And fair. It ain't identical, but it rhymes. The pattern's the same one every single time. Somebody who's never once picked up the tool telling you what's wrong with it and charging you for the telling. Nobody taught you how to look at it, so you bought the label. That's the whole thing, right there. Okay, there's a ditch on the other side of this road too, and I've watched good men land square in it. The fellow who learns to read a steak, or read anything, and it curdles on him, can't sit at his own daughter's cookout without saying something about the meat. Can't let a burger just be a burger. Knowing better is only worth having if it don't cost you the table. I'd rather eat a bad steak in good company than a good one alone, correcting everybody at the grill. And I'm not telling you I've got that balance figured clean myself. I've bit my tongue at more than one cookout, and I've failed to bite it at a couple others. Before I let you go, that calf I mentioned a while back, the one that wouldn't take to the bottle, she's off it now. Eating grain, ornery as her mother already, which I take as a good sign. So here's the 15th thing, and it's really just the other 14 lived out. I went back to that same case a good while later, and I bought the cheap cut on purpose. Flank steak, cut thick as I could talk 'em into, marbled fine, none of it dressed up for the display tray. Salted it that morning, dried it good before it hit the pan, cooked it hot, sliced it against the grain, same as I told you. And I stood right there over that skillet and about laughed out loud at how good my own kitchen smelled. That sound when it first hits the hot iron, I don't believe I'll ever get tired of that, all these years in. I eat alone most nights now. My wife's the one who could take a cheap roast and make it taste like a sundae. And I never did learn her trick of it. But that flank steak, I got right, finally, on my own. Same case, same fella behind the counter, cost me about 1/3 of what that first steak did. And it was better. Not nearly as good, better. You can't cook your way out of a bad steak. But you can walk right on past one now and never even know you dodged it. Okay, if this saves you some money next time you're standing at that case, good. If it didn't help you any, no harm done. Go on and enjoy your steak either way. But somebody's going to stand in front of that case tonight or tomorrow, paying for a picture, same as I did. Might be worth sending this on their way before they do. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves. And go on, ask 'em to cut it thick.